Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone, where we look at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Hello, and welcome back. I'm your hostess, Kristen, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Amber and Cindy and Raina.
Hello.
Hey, Raina.
Hi.
So today our topic is, what is feminism? So I thought today was perfectly appropriate to have all the girls in one place.
Yes.
And then we're also talking about what is pick-me energy. So this is an added little bonus piece of the conversation. Because I was like, I don't know what that is. So really today we're just kind of unfolding like our opinions of what is, was, and will be feminism. And, shedding some light on what I personally kind of thought was a weird social media derogatory term of pick-me girls. So, Cindy, would you like to explain what a pick-me girl is? Because I had never heard of that before.
I will be glad to. I first heard this term from somebody else talking about girls who change fundamentally who they are, the things that they like, and the things that they do in order to attract a man. So, say they're interested in a guy who only listens to country and western music and he's a cowboy or whatever, they suddenly quit listening to rock and roll and they listen only to country and they start wearing prairie skirts and cowboy boots or whatever, and they just kind of totally change who they are for this one person. And they're not interested in the things that they used to be interested in before because they're only interested in the things that this new love interest is in. And it's kind of a, I don't know, it's a very it usually follows someone who has a lot of a lack of self-esteem. So this person takes rejection very personally. They overinvest in others. They might need to do things to prove that they're worthy of that person, and they seek validation from external sources. So the opposite of that, and this is coming from a little thing that I saw on Pinterest or something. I don't know where I saw it, but the opposite of that is feminine magnetism, which is where you're confident in yourself. You can be with someone who likes things that are different than you and still like the things that you like and still do the things that you do because you know that you're worth it and you give to only to the people who give back to you, and you know that your presence alone in the relationship is a valuable commodity regardless of whether you believe the same things or listen to the same music or whatever. And really, someone who is confident in their self can give without any expectation or need to get anything in return. And that's a big difference there. So the pick-me girl is acting and behaving in a way to get validation from external sources, and she gives her attention in order to get attention. But someone who has true feminine magnetism is independent enough to like what she likes and be open to experiencing other things or to incorporate those other things, but still maintain what she is at her core self. And she gives without any expectation or need to have any validation in return.
So I was doing a little bit of reading so I could understand the example, and I got a different explanation of what a pick-me girl is, and I
Okay.
found it really interesting because it almost felt like it was the pot calling the kettle black. So here's my example of calling a girl a pick-me girl online is saying, oh, she likes to watch football with the guys and say she doesn't wear makeup and she likes to eat wings like one of the guys, and she says that to other girls to make them feel shame for being different. So
that is not the way.
Let me finish what I'm saying. So the term is like she's actually using her reasoning for why she has those actions is actually pointing at the other girls or other women, which I find ironic that the women who are talking about it on social media are talking about women doing that. So it's like a vicious cycle of women talking about women.
Women are really bad about talking about women.
I think that was the whole point of why we wanted to talk about this topic during this feminism topic is because it's women.
It's also
tearing
National
other
Women's
women
Month.
down, and it's talking about tearing other women down.
Well, I just want to throw this question out there. Why do women like to tear other women down? Why do women hate each other so much?
It's an animal instinct. Men do it too. It's the alpha male, the alpha female of the pack or whatever. Women tear other women down to prove that they are the top dog, basically. And the only way the top dog can stay the top dog is to keep the other dogs down, right? Now, I will say that description that you had about the pick-me, that is not the way I've come to understand it. And the pick-me girl, using your football metaphor, the girl who doesn't wear makeup and watches football and eats wings, she does that not to prove that she's better than the other girls. She does that to prove that she can hang with the guys. And it's the guys she's trying to impress, not the other girls. She's trying to show them that she's a different kind of girl. She's the kind of girl they want. And that's the way I've always understood the pick me, because the pick me is the girl standing there going, pick me, pick me, pick me. That's where the term comes from.
Right. But it's like the question is, though, is who's being affected by that?
The girl.
Why does it matter?
The girl who's being.
Why does it matter?
Wants to be picked.
The point is that it is a sign of low self-esteem for the girl who is the pick-me. So if you can't hold your own and be who you authentically are, then you're not being yourself. And that is destructive to your personality. That is destructive to your self-esteem. You need to be able to be who you really are and not pretend to be something else just so that other people, guys or whatever, like you. And that really applies to girls too. Why would you pretend to be something different in order to be liked by somebody else? Because we all know that if you act authentically with yourself, the people who will appreciate your authentic self will find you and appreciate you just as you are.
And that is why I have two friends.
That's a much more powerful position to be in. And no, you have more than two friends.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to Galentine's.
I'm joking.
We're going to a Galentine's. Well, we went to a Galentine's, I'll say, with a lot of friends. And, and we are an oddball bunch of people, but when we're with each other, we're our authentic self, and we're not trying to impress somebody else by being something that we're not. And that's the whole point of that. That's why it's an important thing. And I'm not trying to call anybody out or hurt anybody's feelings by saying it. I'm just it's more of a look deep in your own self and decide if you are really being your own authentic self, and if you are changing who you are because you're with this guy or you're with that guy or whatever, then maybe you have a little bit of that pick me energy as well, and you're not being true to yourself.
Right. And that's why I'm saying, that's why if you're bothered, like if you're in a group of people, like all these single ladies, right? If you're in a group with other single women and men, like maybe your church singles group or whatever, your bowling team, and there's all these hunky guys around, and you're looking at this woman and saying, she's trying too hard to be chosen, then you also have to think back, like, are you trying too hard to not feel bad for not being chosen?
Well, there is some of that too.
Yeah, because it can be a vicious cycle.
Yes.
That's why I'm like, that's so weird that in social media, people a lot of times talk about other people. Like when you're just really scrolling, a lot of social media is just
and
bashing the other people.
I'm not talking about this in a social media sense. I'm talking about this in a real world sense where people who completely change who they are because of who they're with. And I've had friends my whole life who have done that. I've done it myself. I think all girls do it to some extent at one point or another. Before the podcast, I was talking about how when I was younger, I loved Kiss and I loved Fleetwood Mac and the Bee Gees or whatever. And I've had husbands, multiple, who didn't like any of those bands. And so I didn't really listen to some of them. Even more so when I met Mark, because he really didn't like any of those bands. And I just kind of quit listening to them and I didn't only listen to what he liked, but I concentrated on listening to what he liked first. And I put it above what I listened to. And so for a long time, I didn't listen to the music that I loved. And it took me a long time to get to the point where I could say, I don't have to give up the music that I love or the things that I love going and doing just so that I can make him happy, just so that he'll think I'm cool because I like what he likes. Because if he doesn't think I'm cool already, he ain't worth it. And I think that was when I realized that I didn't have to change, was when I realized that he thought I was cool regardless of what kind of music I liked, regardless of, what religion I was, what my political beliefs were, what TV shows I watched. We did not watch the same movies. We didn't watch the same TV shows. We were almost polar opposites. But he thought I was cool just the way I was. And when I finally realized that, then I didn't have to be a pick-me anymore. I didn't have to try hard to like the things that he liked and ignore the things that I liked. And that is true feminine energy. That's true feminine magnetism. Being confident in yourself, knowing that you're a cool person just the way you are. And, I think I'm a very cool person. Y'all may say something different, but, I have a huge musical, many different genres that I listen to. I am into metaphysics. I'm into science. I am into religion. I am into social patterns and behaviors and all kinds of different things. And I think I'm pretty damn smart, just saying, I have a decent IQ. So So I think I have feminine magnetism towards the people who would appreciate exactly what I am. And I don't have to change that. I don't have to play dumb. I don't have to pretend that I like rugby or soccer or something else in order to attract somebody. I don't have to, like a different kind of music just to attract someone. I just am confident in who I am. And I think, that's the way everyone should be. Men, women, whatever. So, that's the main thing. And we haven't even touched on, what is feminism yet, but
I find the older I get, the less I have time for those types of like games.
Yeah.
As far as like suppressing a part of yourself just to, be comfortable in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone many years suppressing different parts of myself for different reasons. I don't know if that's like pick me or not.
Well,
but it's kind of like it when you're a fatter person and you're the fattest person in the room. And when you're walking behind somebody, you make yourself smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't jump back because they're afraid of you touching them, or shove their chair forward because they don't want you to touch their chair, or move out of the way because you're bigger.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I think all of us have a little bit of pick me energy, and I think it's like I said, and Kristen mentioned she doesn't like that term pick me, but it really is it's a low self-esteem issue is what it is. It's a low self-esteem and not being your authentic self. And I think we all do it from time to time, and I think we tend to do it more when we're younger. I think as we get older, we become a little more confident in who we are, and we realize that the people who are going to appreciate us will appreciate us for who we actually are. And the people who want us to be a certain way, or the people who we think we need to be a certain way to draw their attention or their love or whatever, they're really not worth that effort, because they're not giving you back what you think they're going to give you back.
Right.
And
I think that's the thing, is like, it's not the term pick me, like the words. It's just the idea of talking about it is literally, it's fundamentally, you're saying this person is insecure and they change their behavior, so I'm going to talk about them. Like, that just makes people more insecure.
no, because
If I'm listening to this and I have that type of personality, I'll be like, wow, she's really bashing.
But it's really no different than if you're talking about people who have PTSD. You're not making people with PTSD feel ashamed that you're talking about PTSD. You're not.
Well, there's a difference in talking about PTSD and talking about people.
Exactly.
A specific person with PTSD.
Well, I haven't talked about a specific person.
Well, no, I'm just saying. That,
right.
I just want to clarify.
I'm talking about, in general, this tendency of women to pretend to be other than they actually are. And I'm not calling out any certain woman at all. Although I do know certain people who've done it. Like I said, I've done it myself. But I'm not trying to call people out for it. I'm bringing awareness that it is a sign of low self-esteem. Just like certain things are a sign of PTSD, certain things are a sign of depression, certain things are a sign of whatever. That's all I'm doing. This is an awareness.
Right. Well, and I also think, like I said, pot kettle black, that talking about other women and not lifting them up
right.
is
Well,
also a sign of
that's
low self-esteem.
well, that's the point of it, is to help lift them up out of that habit.
I know. I don't know. Maybe like the angle is like, it's the elephant in the room, is that really it is that in society there's so many people with low self-esteem. It's not about like, oh my gosh, look at all these people with low self-esteem and all the behaviors that they have. It's like the topic should be, what can we do to lift people up?
Right.
And
Well,
that's where the feminism energy is that
Right.
we were wanting to tie into this. So
Right.
I want to segue into that, because
right.
it's what we do as a society is we constantly not pick me, but pick and poke and prod and bully and nag and boast and brag about how we're better and they're not. And oh my God, I can't believe she just did that. Let me go tell everyone on the internet about this lady's fat butt. And look
But
at
we're
her
not-
ugly
I
outfit.
mean,
No, I'm
yes,
just saying though,
that
like as a
problem is out there.
society,
It is.
I'm
Our
not saying
society
you
does
do it. I'm
Yeah.
saying society does it. We do it all
Yeah.
the time.
Absolutely, we do. Yeah.
And that is what is like the back and forth feeding and the it's like a tug of war. You have
Right.
one person saying like, oh my gosh, look at all these women and how they behave, and then someone else says, oh man, look at how this society is, and we're so bad, and I can't stand women who stand up for themselves, and other people I can't stand how women are so weak. What we really should be doing is saying, you are my sister. You are a woman just like me, and the things that we go through are all equally troubling and hard, and we all have self-esteem problems.
Absolutely, we do.
And we are
Yeah.
the answer and the problem.
Well, that is true.
And
also.
I think honestly that's one of the biggest things in like the feminism movement, that women are like, oh my gosh, we woke up and we're like, you know what? We're not going to take this anymore. We're not taking the abuse from men or ourselves or
Right.
from society or religion or the government or whatever thing it is that's oppressing us, right? And then we're saying we're going to break free of it. And honestly, like, if there's anything we could break free of right now, is the way we treat each other.
Well, absolutely. And
break free from yourself.
Well, and
And
you
that
were
too, the
talking
prison
about,
we put on ourselves.
you're talking about feminism and the feminist ideas. From this, as a person who grew up in the 70s, I never identified myself as a feminist because I saw the feminists as being anti-feminine.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
So
it's confusing for
it
many.
very
It
much
really is.
Well, that is the original idea of feminism, was that feminists were bra burning.
But there are different styles and
No.
types of.
But that's it
it's
wasn't
every
back then.
generation has
It
its
has
ebb and
changed.
flow.
It's changed. Back then, they disrespected women who wanted to stay home and raise children. They thought if you didn't have a career, you weren't a worthy female. You were less than they were.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to be in combat, and they wanted all these equal things to men. They wanted to be exactly equal to men. But let's face it, we are not equal because we're not the same.
Right.
Now, there are places and ways in which we are equal. We both have 2 arms, 2 legs, a head on our shoulders. We're just as smart.
And that's about it.
Well,
Yeah.
we are as smart as men.
Mm-hmm.
We can make logical choices. We can handle our money. We can drive a
We
car.
are not less than men.
But we are not less than men.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has been this paradigm shift where we have moved from this, you must be this kind of feminist in order to be a feminist, but now it's, let's celebrate the things that we are that are different.
Yeah.
I have this power that a man can't. I can carry a baby in my body,
Yeah.
and a man cannot do that.
Yeah, and I think that's where Amber's feminism idea came from is maybe when Amber and I were growing up, it was like the new age of feminism was
neo-feminism.
Was not like I'm gonna wear pants and join the army, but I'm gonna be a boss babe.
Yes.
To me, that's a type of feminism.
It
is
a
being
type
feminine, but not being
and that
feminine.
That plays into that.
I don't know how to explain it.
That
I don't
plays
know.
into the feminine magnetism because as a woman who has feminine magnetism understands her powers. She's a boss, as you said. You know, she works, but she also has a family. She does all this stuff. She can carry the weight of the world on her shoulders. She's smart. She might make more money than her husband, and yet she can still maintain a great household or whatever. Or maybe she chooses not to and he stays home and raises the kids. That's the thing about the new feminism is that it's about having those choices. It's not about I am equal to men. It still means I am not less
We're
than men.
no longer having to fight for that ability to do those things.
Well, we do still have to fight for it because there's still women who...
In the world. I meant the U.S.
In the U.S., there are still companies where a woman and a man have the same job, same
that's true.
thing, and they don't make the same amount of money.
In general, I can get a job without my husband's permission.
Yes, you can. You can open a bank account without your husband's permission.
I can
you
own
get
a
a
house
credit
in
card.
my name.
You can
without
buy a car.
Having a husband. Yeah.
You can do all those things. But back when I was a kid, you couldn't buy a house. You couldn't buy a car. You couldn't open a checking account without your husband or your father doing it for you.
I was watching a movie with my former ex-husband. We were watching this movie and it was based in like the 60s, and this woman was in like an abusive relationship, and he asked me, why doesn't she just move out?
Yeah.
And I was dude, this is so different. Can you, like, we weren't alive during that time and we take that for granted.
Right.
Our generation, you know, Raina's generation just has no clue. This woman was a prisoner in her own home.
Yes.
Her husband worked. He was the only one who had a job. He was the one with the car all day long. He took the car to work and she stayed at home. She didn't have a way to leave.
She had no money of her own.
She had no money of her own. It wasn't like she had a cell phone, you know? And, like, there was nowhere for her to go. Right. And so I really, like, when he asked that, I was like, we are so clueless of the advancement. Looking back, it happened so rapidly that, and we aren't even as affected by it because we're so lucky here in the U.S. that we don't even see it. In other cultures, it's still happening.
Yeah.
And
a lot of cultures, it's still happening.
That's the thing to me that was just like, you know, mind-boggling and illuminating to me that we are just so clueless of, like, just the human condition and the fact that we have this ability now to just get up and walk out and say, I'm not going to be in this house anymore and I'm going to go live somewhere else because I'm not happy.
Right.
To me, that's just crazy. Like, to think like 40 years ago, 50 years ago, you couldn't do that. Like, it's actually like kind of hurts my heart thinking about like the generations, thousands of generations of women that were stuck.
Right.
That couldn't move.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when a woman's body wasn't even her own.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not going to get graphic here, but, you know, she had no control, no right to say yes or no to her husband or whatever, you know. Yeah. And that, you know, now we know that is different, you know, that's not true. So I think that's, you know, like I said, for the longest time, I did not embrace feminism because I didn't want to be associated with those women who felt like women should be doing the same things that men do, because I didn't necessarily want to do the same things as men did. I wanted to have children, but I wanted to have a career too. And you know, and I wanted to get paid, but I didn't want to be associated with that group of women. And now the idea is that we are celebrating women's autonomy, you know, in some ways where there's some things where some of those rights have been taken away from us, but we're still fighting for them. But what we're celebrating is that women are wonderful, and women are no less than a man. Women can do anything they set their minds to. And I think that is the truth of feminism now, is that we need to be holding up other women. Like you said, we need to be lifting each other up instead of tearing each other down. And I think part of that tearing each other down, like I said, it's that pack mentality where women had to compete for the man, and the woman had to be a certain way. And so that was why, we picked on other women, was because we wanted to show to the men that we were the one that they wanted. We had to convince the man that we were the one they wanted. And, we don't have to do that. The guy who wants you is going to appreciate you for who you are. Your friends who are going to feel the closest to you are the ones who are the most like you and are going to appreciate you for who you really are. Right?
Yeah. That's right.
So that's my whole idea of that feminism, feminine magnetism, pick me, whatever.
What are your thoughts, Raina? Do you see girls at school that
act like that, like they fawn over guys?
A little?
Yeah. You don't do that, do you?
No.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
Do you think girls nowadays are nicer to each other? Or do you think they're getting worse? Like bullies and stuff. There's a lot of talk about bullies at school. What do you think?
I don't know.
You don't know? No one picks on you, huh? No one would mess with my Raina.
Everybody likes Raina.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. But you're just yourself, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't change who you are to make anybody else like you, right? No?
Never.
If you had a friend who did that, would you tell her?
What would you tell your friend if you felt like she wasn't acting herself? It's a hard conversation, huh? Yeah?
Yeah. It is a hard conversation. I mean, it's like, because like you said, you're not trying to hurt their feelings. It's more of a concern. I want you to be who you are.
Yeah. I think sometimes you see that behavior because maybe you once tolerated it and you regret it.
Yeah.
Like you said, you once stopped listening to your favorite band just because someone else didn't like listening to it, And I think
it gets worse than that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's like that's young adult problems. Oh, the woes of being 20. I can't listen to the music I like. Yeah. There's so many other things like living in the state, moving. You made that choice.
I know people who, women who changed their political leanings because, they just, they wanted to impress the people who believe something else. So
I think that there is that thin line of impressing other people and doing things because you think other people will be impressed by it. And then there's also spending quality time with someone and finding out that you aren't as rigid in what you like and believe in. And I think that you also have to make room for that.
Right. I agree
Because-
too. Because
Yeah, I mean, you can spend time with someone who has a different political opinion,
Right.
and if you're open to what they have to say, you may change your mind about
right.
some
Well,
of
and
your.
that has happened to me over the
Yeah,
past few
yeah.
years, from
So,
friends.
You can't
So,
just always say like, "Oh, you're being swayed by your new group of friends,"
Right,
because
right.
well, yeah, they have some really good points of view.
Right, right.
So,
I agree.
I think that, it's important to, lift up the people around you. When you identify that you think maybe that person has a low self-esteem, the best thing you can do is be the person that lifts their self-esteem, because
Right,
you may be
right.
that one person in their life that makes them smile or makes them really go, she's right.
Well,
I am beautiful.
And maybe
Just the way I
that
am.
is you do that by acknowledging the things that are authentic about them and pointing those things out,
Mhm.
like
Versus pointing out the things that you think are inauthentic.
yes. I love that you love baseball. You and I could always enjoy baseball together. That was always one of my favorite things, or whatever,
Mhm.
rather than saying, well, you don't ever go to baseball anymore because you only watch football now, Does
Oh
that
yeah,
make
you
sense?
shouldn't guilt your friends.
No. So
That just pushes them away even more.
but you can appreciate them for their points of view, and you can always ask questions about their new points of view if they do have a new perspective on something, or they like a new kind of music. How did you get into that kind of music? What do you like about it, or whatever, So, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can approach that with your friend and help them feel a little more self-confident in who they are without pointing out their flaws and making them feel less confident about who they are. So, as we're talking about this, though, we're talking as though there's feminine energy and masculine energy, but there are all kinds of other
This not so black and white. Yeah.
Right. Everything's really not that black and white. And I think that's part of the thing I'm talking about feminine energy, is that it's not, being feminine is not just this one thing, right?
Yeah.
Being masculine is not just
And
this
you're
one
not
thing.
saying feminine like girly.
Right. I'm not saying feminine like girly, and I'm not saying masculine like macho man. And then there's like this whole spectrum in between.
Mm-hmm.
And, like if you talk about a non-binary person or something like, or a transgender person,
Mm-hmm.
their energy, their masculinism, is that the word? Or feminism is, it could be
It's their
fluid.
own definition. Yeah.
It
Okay,
could be fluid.
I could really get deep and weird about this because, for starters, and I know I've said this on the podcast, and I have no problem with feminism. I have some of these beliefs, like, growing up, I understand. Some of these beliefs intersect and flow with my own beliefs, but y'all know how I feel about labels,
Yeah.
Yes.
and I feel that sometimes, especially given like Cindy, like what you went through and everything like that in the 60s and everything like that, and even in the 90s, I remember that like feminism has always had kind of a negative connotation.
It has.
And so some women or whatever might step back from the term feminism because it kind of has a negative connotation, and it's kind of stereotyping in a way, where when like you think of, even in the movies and stuff, like the 90s especially, like if you were a feminist, you didn't shave your armpits, you had short buzz cut hair, you were a lesbian or whatever. And I'm glad that society is going away from these types of stereotypes.
Right.
But still, like, sometimes, as somebody that grew up through all of that and having any kind of feminist views, getting you, looked at a certain way, especially growing up in a small town in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Having any, and this kind of goes in with the like pick me energy as well. Having any beliefs or thoughts or actions that deviated away from like the
social norm,
the white man waspy agenda, small town agenda, or whatever, was just not tolerated,
Right.
not acceptable. And like terms such as, like a feminine man or a masculine female or a trans or non-binary person, those things. And Kristen, you were so lucky growing up in a bigger city, especially like out here in Dallas, where it's a lot more. I mean, I'm sure things were like that still out here in Dallas, but like growing up and feeling any certain type of way different than what you're supposed to be.
Right.
It's hard to jump on any kind of bandwagons because in the back of your mind, you're, like your mom is telling you that you need to wear makeup so you'll attract a man. So you'll find a husband. You need to lose weight and dress more feminine so you'll find a husband. And in a small town Texas, that's what
That's what I was raised in too.
Yeah, I was like, I was raised with that. Like, you had a female had to be a certain way. My mom made me start wearing a bra. I didn't want to. In fact, I used to wear it, leave the house, take it off on the bus, put it in the backpack, and go braless to school.
I'm amazed you could get away with that because at my school, it was part of the dress code. Girls had to wear a bra.
Yeah.
And that's why they burned the bras because
it was expected of them. And you know what?
I wore
That's
baggy
the one
clothes.
Still is though, and that's the thing that's so
I'm
messed
still
up
expected to wear a bra.
Yeah,
Yes.
for
And I
all
hate
of those
bras.
bra burning and everything,
We still have bras.
those women still raised their daughters to wear bras.
Yeah.
So joke's on us because men could care less. They'd probably appreciate it if we didn't. But we
They'd
still
probably appreciate it if
choose-
we didn't wear any clothes.
I know, but we still make that choice
Right.
to fall into that social norm because we feel like we have to fit in. So
yeah.
even though we still feel like we can be a little different, we're still stuck in this pattern holding cell.
Well,
What do they
sure.
call that? Holding pattern. There we
Holding
go.
pattern, yes. Yes.
Well,
So-
these stereotypes, like women and feminine and everything, is this. If you're a male and you're feminine, then you must like pink and wear a little makeup. Or you must be a femboy. That's like the term, right, Raina? Femboy? Yeah, I hear it at my school.
No.
Yeah.
So the funny thing though is that we also hold those same social expectations on men too.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, men can't talk about their feelings. Men, must have their hair a certain way. Men must stand a certain way. Men must, they can't
And this
talk.
is why
They
men
can't wear pink or
say
purple.
that we're most the
or-
confusing. We are so confusing and we don't make sense because we are literally like the pattern. We're the cause and the solution, and we just go
Yeah.
around and around. I do say though that like you're right, Amber. That the way you grew up, even if you go back to your small town and you look at someone Raina's age, there's a little bit more leeway and space to grow as an individual. Yes, small towns do tend, because the further away you are from the spoke, or from the center on the spoke,
Yeah.
the longer it takes for those
social changes to get
to
there.
get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So the smaller towns, the rural areas, that individuality takes longer to get there.
Yeah.
Because of the acceptance. When you come to like a big city, you're gonna see more people that are individualized. That's
Right.
why people go, I'm gonna grow up and move to New York City or California
Yeah.
and become a star, because I'm gonna be myself and I'm gonna start myself brand new.
Right.
You know, it's
Where no one knows me. That's the dream for people who grew up in a small town.
Right.
it's funny, like whenever when I was in middle school, like my class took a trip to Washington D.C., which is way different than Texas. And I remember we were walking down the street and there was a woman wearing a dress and couldn't even tell you the last time she shaved her legs
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and her armpits, and everybody was just like
Culture shocked.
culture shock. And then another culture shock was when we moved out here to Denton and went to UNT, and there were all of these movements of kids on campus, like, so there are boys that wore dresses and carried purses and satchels and bags, and this was like the early 2000s, which is like not as common as it is now. And which is another culture shock from a small town, but it's just like interesting, like when you grow up that way and you don't have like internet access, and there are still towns in America that are like that. In Texas even.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get internet access.
Yeah.
And it's just and they never leave their town and probably never will.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to think about, like, how much progress we have made as females and how much progress we haven't.
I know. Well,
Yeah.
and
We're
we're
just a
still
small percentage
we're
of the
still
world
shaming
population.
women who
Yeah.
choose not to have children. We're still, we're obsessed with women getting married and having babies, and and
That's because the powers that be are obsessed with that
Right.
thing. The powers that be are boomers or older.
right, and
She says that with a smile.
If you're, I was listening to NPR and they were interviewing this woman, and she was, I wish I had the information in front of me, what she was, who they were interviewing, and what her book or article was, or what. I think it was a book, but she had done all this research about the pressures on women to have children, and she was like, even today, if you see a woman who didn't have children, the assumption is always that she couldn't. She would have if she could have. And why is that? Isn't the whole idea of feminism the ability to choose that and control that part of our physiology and make that choice not to have children for whatever reason we choose? Because there are some women who choose not to bring a child into a world that is, some fear that we're destined to have a civil war sometime soon. There are women who fear...
Cindy, that is a whole other topic
know.
that I could go on a whole other tangent, and we don't want to have a 5-hour podcast.
There's all these reasons why women don't want to have children. That's one of them. One of them is, the world is overcrowded as it is. One of them is they are focused on their career. there's many, maybe they have genetic things or social, or not social, mental issues that they don't want to pass on to a child, or they feel that they wouldn't be a good mother or whatever. And those are all valid reasons not to have a child, and they should have that right to choose that if that's what they choose. And yet we still, oh, you can't have any children. Oh, why don't you have any children? You know, I mean, we literally do that to people.
Oh, literally.
My whole life.
How come you don't want children is the assumed question, instead of,
Right.
you know, hey, I noticed you don't have any kids. Are you thinking about having kids, or is it? I don't.
But
I
why
don't
would you
even
assume that you have
right?
kids?
Why
Like,
even ask in the first
Yeah.
place?
Exactly.
I know.
That's my
I'm
point.
like, I don't even know how to graciously ask that, because I wouldn't dare.
Right.
But also because it's really irritating when people say, "Oh, you don't want kids, do you?" And it's like, well, you
don't
know,
know. Yeah.
you don't know my life story,
Right.
and thank you very much. Like, I do have a kid. I have an awesome kid. I just didn't give birth to her.
Right.
You know.
And she's sitting
Same.
right there.
Uh-huh.
Same. I very much have a child. Her name is Alyssa. She's in college, and my best friend Stacy gave birth to her because she is my clone in every way, and I helped raise her, and I help her out in college. She's my child.
Yeah. And you know, I just I know I've been guilty of it too, because I've asked, you know, why don't you have any kids, or and I've
Mhm.
asked you, you know,
Yeah.
are you going to have kids? Are you going to have, but I think that's because of the you know, I'm a boomer. So, you know, I was raised in that culture where women had children, period.
Right. Well, and I think it's
if you
just,
don't have children, you adopted children.
right. It's just in our nature. Like, I'm like, Raina, I can't wait until you have kids so I can be a
too.
grandma. You know, like, that's just how we are. Like, that's
Right.
women. We think, okay, I'm going to have kids and they're going to have kids and I'm going to be a
Right.
grandma.
Right. Because we want babies in our life perpetually, because that's part of our nature. And
Yeah.
that was part of that feminism that the early feminist movement wanted to bury. They wanted to say, oh, we don't want children. We don't have those nurturing instincts. Those weren't really instincts. They weren't nature. They were something that was forced on us because we have these reproductive organs. But now we know that that it is part of our nature. Those hormones are what makes us have that nurturing instinct.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have that nurturing instinct, but it's also okay not to.
I was about to
And
say,
so
I
have never had that instinct. I have never had like super baby fever where I had to go out and get myself a baby. I've always growing up, I always thought to myself that I might adopt a child, but I have never maybe once or twice in my life, especially around the time when I found out I couldn't have children. But maybe it was a hormonal thing. Maybe I've just never had those hormones.
Yeah.
To want to
But
nest
you know,
and be
it
motherly.
doesn't have to. But that draw towards having a child doesn't necessarily have to be a baby either.
Yeah.
You have something that draws you to children. You're a school teacher. You are drawn.
You know,
You're drawn to children.
distance,
yeah. I think though
those
that,
children
but
leave and go
it's
to their
very
own mama.
Well,
I
that's
think-
like being a grandma.
I think though that saying that every woman is inherently
no, that's what I
destined
said.
to want to have
No.
children is kind of false though, because that's
I didn't say that.
no.
that-
I'm just saying though, it's like that's kind of putting it in all women are in that cookie cutter of,
right. That's why I said not
because
all women do.
I'm sure that there was bajillions of women who never had any desires to be a mother, but because of their role in society and the time frame
They
that
had to be.
they had those children. And I mean, see it in a lot of like historical culture, like in books and stuff, where the mother was distant.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, maybe she really never wanted to be a mom.
Right.
And it makes you kind of think like, wow, women, it's not just about like, oh man, she had to wear a bra or she had to wear one of those, corsets.
Yeah.
Her life must have sucked because they didn't have tampons. Like, that's where my mind first thinks. But then you go,
think,
wow,
God.
oh my gosh, this poor woman had 12 kids and she never even wanted a single, like, to be
Even
a
one of them.
mom.
Yeah.
But she just did it anyways because that's what she was expected to do. Like,
Well, she didn't. I mean, it wasn't even
Or
that. It was
Her
like
father sold
they
her.
didn't have
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like,
She had no control.
right. And then you look at that and you think, what a woman. She did it anyways.
Yeah.
To me, like, that's
feminism.
feminism right
That is
there.
feminism
Is
right
that
there.
she did it anyways because it was the cards that were dealt to her and she did it with stride. And to me, like, that's feminism. Like, argue about what your beliefs are and then still do it. Like, don't lay down and like let the world beat you up. That's my bottom line here. Is just, you know what? You be you. And don't let anyone tell you you can't be otherwise. If you want to wear a dress, wear a dress. If you want to wear a bra, wear a bra. If you want to go to the grocery store in your pajamas and not wear a bra,
I've done it.
I am vowing that I am not going to judge you for that.
I've done
As
it.
a woman, like, that is what I can do for women.
I've come home from the
is
gym in my pajamas
not
and a
judge
t-shirt
people
with no bra.
for their decisions as a woman to be themselves.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we can do. Just I want to just tie that back in there. Like,
I think so
that's
too.
what we can do is stop worrying about what everybody else is doing and just
And
be
don't
proud
worry about
of
what
people.
everybody else thinks either. That's the whole
Exactly.
point of it. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. You don't have to do things to make them appreciate you, to make them respect you, or to make them value
Yeah.
you.
And stand up for what you believe in.
Just be what you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I love it. Well, what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're going back to one of my all-time favorite topics, and that's books.
Yay, books!
You know, we got to get away from some things, and we're going to talk about fantasy, romance, romantasy.
Interesting.
Edward versus Jay. I'm just kidding.
All right. Well, I'm excited because, I love talking about books and we love romantasies. And she totally said Edward versus Jacob.
Yeah.
Raina knows what that means. She's going to be here for the next
We're going to
episode,
delve
too.
into a little bit of book talk as well
Maybe.
and why people are like so obsessed with all that.
I'm interested. Yeah.
All right. Looking forward to it. Well, thanks so much for listening to us as we unfolded our own personal ideas and thoughts and beliefs.
Oddly.
We're
Unscripted.
never
Unscripted.
Because, we have
Oddly.
no idea where we're going with this. We just have a theme.
We
and then
pick a topic and
we
we
start
just talk.
talking about it. So thanks for listening to us discover ourselves. Because hopefully you discovered a little bit about yourself at the same time. That's the whole point.
That's the whole point of this. Yeah.
So definitely come back to us. Check us out on modernmusings.net and MMC Chat on Facebook. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.